This is Roger Simon. I'm here with former child actor, not star, he insists, but he's a star to us, Tony Blankley at the offices of the Washington Times. You can see them, the newsroom behind me, the official newsroom, as opposed to the blogosphere, where we're all at home in our pajamas in very posh bedrooms, as you know. Welcome, Tony.
Thank you very much.
This is actually going to be the first in a series of interviews we're doing with mainstream media major players who are going to be covering not only this election of '06 coming up in a jiffy, but also the big one of '08. What role do you think the blogosphere is going to play in these coming elections?
Well, it's already played, obviously, a big role. I mean, it now plays an essential role, really, in American journalism. It presents information that mainstream media, I don't really like that category for me, but mainstream journalists are using, any decent journalist is following blogs in their zone of reporting, and it brings up information that wouldn't otherwise be there. It informs and shapes the way journalists, better journalists, think about the issues, and then it has its own audience in and of itself, obviously, and they're judging journalists by how the journalists match up with what they're seeing on the blogs, and this has developed, I think, dramatically in the last 3, 4, 5 years, and it's now, I think, basically an institution of American journalism.
So you think it's really part of American journalism then?
Well, effectively. I mean, people can debate what journalism is. I mean, journalists are anybody who work for a newspaper or radio or TV. They don't have a license or be educated or be intelligent. And if you've got a newspaper printing it, you're a journalist. And whether it's a talk show host or whether it's a blog, people are analyzing and commenting on the news, and to the extent that people take it seriously, and people do take many blogs seriously and many radio talk shows seriously, that's journalism in a functional basis.
I noticed you sort of rejected yourself, or rejected the characterization of mainstream media for yourself. Why did you say that?
Well, I think of MSMs as part of the traditional liberal mindset that existed until still exists in networks that dominated the Washington Post, New York Times, LA Times. That I've always thought of myself as an alternative media. I admit we now are of a size that I guess we're mainstream, and to some extent the liberals are off on the edge. I came out of conservative politics and movement. I was a Barry Goldwater supporter in '64. I used to work for Reagan, and we had to get around the mainstream media to get our message out.
We did a little survey with Princeton Research, a fancy organization, about what people really thought about liberal and conservative as terminology in our day and age. And we came up with the result that nearly 43% of the public surveyed in this didn't want to be characterized, were uncomfortable being characterized as liberals, conservatives, or even moderates. What do you think about this?
Yeah, I mean, I use that phrase probably because I'm getting on in years, and those are phrases we use. I think that while it's still a useful analytical tool, we know that about 35% of Americans self-identify as conservatives, about 19 or 20 self-identify as liberals, and the remainder self-identify as moderates. So, in fact, it has an analytical value, but I think the phrases are becoming a little passé, and people don't feel comfortable being put in pigeonholes anymore, and that's probably reflected in what you're getting from the Princeton survey.
Now to ask you, Tony, the obligatory question: what's your prediction for the election day?
Well, my obligatory answer is too soon to tell. Look, we're all looking at the same polling data. The party polls are showing about the same thing objectively, and that's indicating somewhere around 20 seats lost in the House for the Republicans, 4 in the Senate, with 3 toss-ups. However, I've been in politics since Jack Kennedy in 1960, and an awful lot of races in between. I think there's no doubt that the public is peeved with the president. They don't like much of his policy. They're peeved with the House Republicans and the Senate Republicans. The question is whether they're going to buy into the Democrats as an alternative. I think there's a very low threshold the Democrats have to meet. I'm not sure they've quite met it yet, so there may be some resistance there, and there's going to be real effort to try to motivate the Republicans who are currently saying they don't want to vote to come out and vote. Having said all of that, I would think the best the Republicans are likely to do would be about a loss of 12 in the House if things go pretty well over the next 2 weeks. The Senate would probably be a 2 or 3 seat loss at the best for the Republicans. That's But at this point, you don't know, and the polls can't determine turnout because the likely voter screen, which is what the pollsters use to determine who amongst registered voters are likely to vote, is an art form. Unlike putting together a scientific sample, there's no scientific sample for the screen, and so each polling firm has a different series of questions they ask to try to guess at what the turnout's going to be.
Right now, the Democrats are taking it as gospel that they're going to win. What are the possible ramifications if indeed they don't win?
Well, if they don't win, I think the Democratic Party would be in even more disarray than if they do win. They're going to be fairly much in disarray either way because they're not really prepared. That is, they haven't unified behind any significant program. So as an opposition party, they're not really well prepared. But if they should lose this, I think they would probably want to collectively put a brain through their head, because if they can't win this one, then they almost have to go out of business. I'm being a little facetious. As a political party, they should have been able to win this one. They may very well. If they don't, they have to rethink the nature of how they run politics in America.
And do you think Nancy Pelosi will become Speaker?
Well, if they win, she will become Speaker. I don't think there's any question that if there's a Democratic majority, they'll elect Nancy Pelosi.
Well, thank you very much, Tony. And if you can show us how, we're not used to being in mainstream media headquarters like this, so you'll have to show us out.
I'll get you a Sherpa to take you down to sea level.
Thank you.